Hi, I'm Bob the Hollow, and this is a lore dump. These are all things that I've noticed throughout the game and wanted to share but couldn't fit into any of my other videos. So, without further ado... When we wake up in Farling Shrine for the first time, we assume that it's in the present. Why wouldn't we? But then you get to it through the illusory wall after a Sarsus fight, and it's pitch black. It's been stipulated to be in the past for reasons such as the Shrine Handmaid's dialogues, since she doesn't recognize you even if you've already talked to her at the beginning of the game, and actually seems to recognize you in the initial shrine, if for some reason this was the first time you've talked to her. Ludlev's dialogue also points to that, given that he talks about the eyes of a firekeeper in the past tense, and, of course, Champion Gundyr. But there's two problems here. First, when the eclipse happens, it can't be seen from the shrine, and second, how did we time travel? Well, the eclipse also can't be seen from Archdragon Peak and the Anorlondo Irithil joint area with its moonlit sky. Irithil's story goes all the way back to Gwyndolin in the Illusion of Guinevere, and Archdragon Peak is not a place you can get to by boat or a train. It's far, far away. But not so far that you can see it in the distance. So, the different skies would mean that it's in a different time rather than a different place. You get to it through meditation, using the Path of the Dragon gesture. Incidentally, you get this gesture right before the entrance to Untainted Graves, from the corpse of a Drake Blood Knight. Osiris' fixation with dragons and the research conducted by him and the scholars of the Grain Archives would have enabled them to replicate Archdragon Peak's method of time travel. Okay, to answer this, first you must kill the handmaid.
A malicious sort thou art, but marvel on. Remember well, I am undead, bound forever by the shrine's curse.
I won't lie, it kinda feels good. They are bound to that place, more specifically, to that place in time. They have locked away the throne ritual, much like Gwyn locked away the pygmies, in a time where only they could reach it. Farling Shrine's bonfire is connected directly to the high wall of Lothric. It's both a prison and a safeguard, meant to protect that very same ritual. In Dark Souls 1, we kindle the bonfires using humanity. Now, we kindle it with bone shards because we have no humanity left, being unkindled and all. And we do the same thing in Dark Souls 2 because we're too hollowed. The open cinematic is kind of a trip, falling down a great big spiraling portal in the middle of nowhere, but the portal isn't real, it's symbolic of your dark sign. You fall into it and wake up somewhere. You can't remember how you got there. You can't even remember who you are. You're hollowed, son. We only remember our name after getting the effigy, and we keep using this to reverse hollowing afterwards. But they're not reversing the curse itself, they're just helping you remember your past. And since we're talking about Dark Souls 2, walking down this path, you're welcomed with this sound. I could swear I was walking back into Black Gulch. He brought a poison ring to a blood fight. With all the corpses lying around, I wonder if they were dumping the undead here. Gertrude was said to be the queen's daughter. noticed that it was just a rumor, not a fact, so, even though it may have been confirmed afterwards, at that time, her royal blood was kept a secret. Also noticed that there is no mention of the king in there. Was she a bastard? But who was the father? Sully. Well, that would be another reason for him to help the queen. He wanted to invade her covenant. You can trade the vertebra shackle with the crows for Lucatio's mask. Did she start the mound makers? You make the videos, and some arguments don't make it to the final cut. Sometimes you need more evidence, sometimes they are later revelations, and sometimes you just forget. The following are such arguments. I hope they'll help reinforce my theories, and I hope I don't forget anything this time. I'll start with something that came as a bit of a pleasant surprise. Viewer Aromardu has provided me with his theory regarding the connection between She-Ra and Sif. I'll dispense this theory now. Crown of She-Ra, Knight, in service to Filianor. Finely crafted with silver and fashioned with a pearl from a man-eater shell. The man-eater shells are found before Sif's boss room, making the first obvious connection. And the way she describes herself as descendant of the gods implies she came long after Gwyn and his own children, in a post-Dragon War era. She wouldn't necessarily have been hunting dragons with the lightning arrows, they could simply have been gifted upon her. Since the Ringed City was meant to bookend the story, having a bookend to Sif's story fits as well, since he's been present in all three games. In Dark Souls 1, we learn he's been using sorcery to create hybrids. In Dark Souls 2, we find even more hybrids he made or is implied to have made. And in Dark Souls 3, we get more dragon humans that call back to Priscilla in Dark Souls 1 and at least one human-looking girl who calls herself daughter of the Duke. And since it's the Duke and not a Duke, I assume it's meant to be a wink to the audience. After many flawed experiments, Sif finally made a hybrid that looked human, which made her more palatable to the gods. They still exiled her to a convenient, far-off land that's isolated from the rest of the world, though. Gwyn's relation to the dragons was complicated. He waged a genocidal war against the dragons and yet befriended one. He gave him extreme privileges and seems to have supported his research, even letting the results of the crossbreed experiments live and be supported rather than killed outright. Priscilla got a painted world, an elaborate building to contain it, and a generational honor guard of sorts on the outside. The fact that she even had a name, while the painter and Yorshka never got one to begin with, seems to imply she was beloved at first, before the gods discovered her terrible powers. In medieval times, unwanted children would not get named by their parents if they were from aristocratic circles, to avoid scandals. If Gwyn is Yorshka's biological father, he might have been so ashamed by Priscilla that he hid Yorshka from the other gods and never named her for this reason. She was just too similar. We see this in Shanalot as well. She was a disappointment to Vendrick and Aldia, and they never named her. She had to get a name from the ancient dragon. Finally, we get to She-Ra, who has an actual name and takes pride in her lineage. This must have been a major breakthrough and something the gods could accept in public, giving her rare aristocratic armor and everything. I don't necessarily agree with everything, but I really like his logic. I like that she would be an experiment rather than an actual daughter, and I like that it wraps up Sif's experimentation plotline. Well done, my friend. Well done. I think I should make clear that, in the context of that theory, even though the Firekeeper and Gundyr both had originally intended to usurp the First Flame in the name of Londor, she went back in her decision and chose to side with no one. That's why she had gained the ability to heal the Dark Sigil and why our Firekeeper gets the vision of a world without fire upon receiving the Firekeeper's eyes. I have stated my belief that Velka is responsible for the creation of the original painted word. The description of the mask of Velka from Dark Souls 1, their masks symbolize separation from worldly desires, would be another indication of that, since the whole idea behind the painted word would be to separate yourself from the real world. Alfrida's ordained set resembles the clothes worn by Velka's statues, and its description says that she assumed the form that the inhabitants of the painted world yearned for, which could mean that she has taken on Velka's appearance to endear herself to the forlorns of the painting. The placement of the rings isn't always relevant, but they seem to always go in tandem with the accepted lore. The rings of the Knights of Gwyn, in particular, are special, and the Wolf Ring +2 in Cemetery of Ash tells me that Pharaon has indeed been here. Another ring that struck very close to my heart is the Silver Serpent Ring, located in Firelink Shrine. It's hidden behind an illusory wall, past a hidden path, behind a locked door, or a tree jump. It's symbolic of the secret involvement by the primordial serpents in the creation of the shrine and the ritual of the thrones. And I think it's stunning, the fact that it is literally sitting behind Lothric's throne. I explained why I believe Lothric's queen to be Rosaria, and also why I believe her to have been Gwyn's wife. The presence of hidden blessings in the Ringed City confirms the connection between Rosaria to the gods of old, placing her in the right point in time. The Grus and giant crabs in Smoldering Lake are all lambered, even though they're not unkindled. Seeing that Sullivan has made it to this place before puts another link between him and Rosaria and the subsequent creation of Unkindled Ash. Remember Jay's ring that was possibly brought to Osiris as a gift from Sullivan? The Eastern's ashes found in Irothel are a reference to Shival of the East from Dark Souls 1. One of the assassins sent to kill Osiris may have been the merchant's bodyguard, given the presence of the shadow set inside the consumed king's garden. Sullivan was feeding Osiris' paranoia while at the same time building up the king's confidence towards him. Batwing demons were exported from Orlando to Lothric, another link between the two kingdoms, between Sullivan, the first scholar, and Rosaria, Queen of Lothric. I've been pitching Sullivan to have been involved in the creation of the Angelic Faith, so this isn't Aldrich. This is Gwendolyn's dead body posing as a hand puppet. The blob thing is Aldrich, who had been feeding on Gwendolyn. And Aldrich has open exposed ribs. And so do the Sullivan's beasts. And so do the pilgrim butterflies. And Sullivan himself has been infected with the pilgrim's parasite. His infection and hollowed skin could help explain why he attacks us, even though we're unkindled. He could have been used and deceived, just like the rest of us. Abandoned by Rosaria, with his ruling crumbling around him, he secluded into his cathedral, waiting, hollowing. In this video, I connected Sullivan to the Xanthos scholars and, by proxy, to the Pilgrims of the Dark. Dark Souls 3's pilgrims are also connected to those scholars through the chameleon spell, which you get from a pilgrim's corpse. The dancer is unique. The music, the movement, it's hypnotic. There are mysteries hidden behind her veil. She's of royal blood, a distant daughter to the old royal family, and the miracles within sunlight can be transposed from her soul. Is she of the House of Gwyn, a bastard sibling of Guinevere? No. The first time I came across the connection between the Pontiff and the Xanthos scholars I thought I had also found out the identity of the dancer of the Boreal Valley. It allowed for some very needed perspective, and I realized that the old royal family could be a reference to the Princess of Ulasil. After her kingdom was swallowed by the abyss, she was relocated to Anarlondo. She was of royalty and wouldn't be left behind. Her kindness would naturally draw her to Guinevere, the Princess of Sunlight, to whom she became a maiden, as described by the soothing sunlight miracle. In return for their hospitality, she taught the secrets of light manipulation to Gwyndolin, giving him the knowledge necessary for the creation of his illusions. The other gods left, but she had seen the fall of her kingdom and chose to stay within the relative safety of Anarlondo in a feeble attempt to ward off the dark. But darkness would come for her. The self-proclaimed pontiff took Gwyndolin away. She was locked in the dungeon and turned into something devoid of light. Dusk was gone. Only blind loyalty and mysterious beauty remained. I've wanted to share this theory for a long time, but I needed more evidence before bringing it to light. Well, now that we have the Ringed City, let there be light. In this DLC, we are given the White Birch Bow, a relic from an ancient land of sorceries that was swallowed by the abyss, that, of course, being Ulasil. This description was actually patched and used to read, a relic from the land of an old sorcerer who was swallowed by the abyss. Notice that even though it says that the sorcerer was swallowed by the abyss, the bowl itself is a relic from the land, not the sorcerer. And the NPC that wields one such bow, Half-Light, never casts any spells. I've found out about this patch through the Ashen Hollow and Sanad's Cay, and felt the need to address the change to make sure it wouldn't create any confusion. Now, don't be frustrated if you can't see the connection between the bow and the dancer yet. That's because the connection was taken away from you, but it's still there. Inside the code, the bowl is referred to as Dancer's Bow. It's the exact same item, except for the unused name. I think they may have changed it so it wouldn't be too obvious. God knows they're allergic to obvious. You should always take lore implications from cut content with a grain of salt, but I'd ask you to at least consider it. If you've ever stared at the dancer, mesmerized, wondering about her secrets, or if you've ever wondered about the fate of the little princess from Ulasil, then I hope I managed to bring you at least a small sense of closure. They promised us in one of their trailers that all would be revealed, and I think it has. We just have to unearth the secrets, and together, I think we can get there.